it looks like something else. So it looks like we're fighting about money, but in actual fact, what we're fighting about a lot of the time is we've lost our way with each other. So we just don't know how to connect. And I think as you go through marriage, the challenge is how do you stay connected by continually getting to know who your partner is as they continue to grow, change and evolve.
Welcome to Separate Bathrooms. We would like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land on which we record this podcast, the Gadigal People of the Eora Nation. We pay our respects to elders past and present. Welcome to Separate Bathrooms. I'm Brahe-Daddo. This is my wife,
Daddo.
And we've got a great start to the year.
We do. We're excited to have this couple on. It's slightly unusual in a sense, these two. They work together. They're relationship therapists. They're psychologists. They've built a business together. So that's going to be really interesting to talk to them about how they work together in that sense and where their work takes them. You know, do they take it home with them, and is there ever conflict within their space of their work?
Yes, and I'm actually looking forward to some, I don't know, I want to say hacks, but I don't like that term. But, you know, some advice and some tips on how to better navigate the relationship.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think this is a perfect way to begin 2023.
Kerrie and Adrian Lumbewe, they run a business called Motivating Marriages, and it exists to see couples not just survive their relationships, but to thrive in it and be all the more better for having chosen love. Isn't that sweet?
It's great. It's
I
awesome.
love that.
Let's bring them into the bathroom, Kerrie and Adrian. Welcome, Adrian and Kerrie, to the bathroom.
Thanks, guys.
Look at you. You're a vision, you two. How are you?
Well, thank you.
We're going well. We're going well.
Are the both of you talking to us from your home or from your business?
Home office.
Home office. Very good.
Yeah.
Obviously, you two work together. This is what we're curious about, and to hear all about the work that both of you actually do. But we, whenever we get couples on, we always love to get their love story first, of course, because it's our favourite thing. So how did you two actually meet?
Do you want me to go?
Well, it depends which part of the story. So
we want their truth.
The truth. We actually officially met in prison. So that's how we met. And that's always a really great story to tell people who don't know that we're actually psychologists. It's nice to see their faces. Yeah.
the real story. Well, that is the real. Yeah, that's right. Well, the real story is that we actually. Well, I saw Kerrie 3 times actually. And one was when we were both at the same uni, but we were in different courses. But we had a crossover in one of the subjects there. And I saw her sort of sitting outside one of the lecture halls. She grabbed my attention, you know. I don't think she saw me though. So that was the first thing. Then secondly, we met at the same job interview in one of the prisons. We were going for the same position in one of the prisons there. So we met do you want to tell the story?
Yeah, we met in the interview process. And so I was sitting there preparing for my interview, and this very polite gentleman comes up to offer me a glass of water while he was getting himself one, and I flatly refused because he was the competition. So I was
very
dead
nice
set on getting that job.
I thought it was nice.
He's very gentlemanly.
Was there something diabolical in the water?
No, I can assure you there was not. No, just good intentions there. So she refused. But anyway, so I ended up getting the job though. I'll just tell you guys that.
And I just have to say that is no indication of who's a better psychologist.
I can vouch for that too.
No competition here, sweetheart.
But then officially, we met in one of the prisons that we both worked at. We were colleagues. They're both psychologists in one of those Sydney prisons, and we just sort of met there, and the rest is history, as they say.
The rest is history. We met we worked close together, and probably one of the things that attracted us most to each other about each other was just how we both really love justice, not just justice for the clients that we were working with, but the injustice of the system that we were working in was something that was really challenging for both of us, and our hearts and our minds met over that, really. And that's been something that has been, just a bit of a solid rock throughout our life. We're pretty big justice seekers, and we like to do things right, and we like people to be honoured and respected and valued, and when we see that not happening, that's something that we always come back to and align on. So it's nice to have that value in common.
That's a really powerful connection to have, actually, because when your values match on such a deep level like that, that's a great connection to have. So I can understand why you were both so attracted to each other from that perspective alone. So not to mention you guys are very good looking. So
So Al's she's saying, do you want to ask? So I thought you might have answered this question already, but so when you did see each other, was it love at first sight?
I definitely noticed Kerrie at uni because she had jet black hair, if you can believe that, looking at her now. Jet black hair. And so it really caught my attention. I thought, she looks very nice. But I didn't approach her or anything like that. But she definitely sort of stuck in my mind. And then when we met at the
prison,
the actual prison, we like the stuff we were talking about before. It was a very quick attraction because we found that we could just talk to each other. We could talk about meaningful things, connect emotionally on certain topics that Kerrie has just talked about. So it was quite easy, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was. Yeah. Very easy.
Do you think that's an actual thing, love at first sight, asking you two relationship experts?
Well, there's definitely components. I mean, science has shown us like the importance of the limerence effect. So things like that chemical attraction, lust is what people call it generally. And that's very real. So like we instinctively like the smells of certain types of people, and we instinctively feel opposed to the smells of certain types of people as well. And similarly, like we like the look of certain types of people, and other people we don't like the look of. That doesn't necessarily mean it's going to lead to really long-lasting, healthy love relationships, but definitely I would agree that attraction at first sight is for sure an absolute thing.
I often say to my clients, that limerence is what brings us together, attracts us first, but love is what actually keeps us together. So when you say love at first sight, maybe it's limerence at first sight, maybe, I don't know, but after the limerence effect sort of dies down, then you can actually really work out whether are you really connected emotionally.
Right.
What is that word?
I've never heard that
limerence?
word before.
Limerence effect.
Limerence. I like that word. It kind of sounds like angelic. You know what I mean? It's got kind of this ethereal quality to it. I like that.
Yeah.
Is it the ENC part of it, like phosphorescence or?
Yeah, I think that might be it.
It's like a classier version of lust.
I was going to say, like most of us know about lust. You go, okay, I'm hard to try.
Yeah.
So you dated for how long before the proposal?
2 or 18 months.
No, I think we were only dating about 11 months, but then we were friends for probably about 7 months beforehand. Yeah.
Yep. And Adrian, how'd that proposal go?
So it was very clear that we were going to, I was going to, pop the question, so to speak, and we'd gone and designed the ring together. So we'd done all that stuff together.
Oh, okay. Yep.
And Kerrie's very astute. She can read you just by looking at you. She's in the right job, so put it that way. So I had to try my real best to think about how to surprise her. And so we were going on this drive holiday up to Brisbane. I think it was, Brisbane. And at the beginning of the trip, I sort of said to her, look, Dal, I know that you really want to get engaged on this trip, but the ring's not ready. I called the guy and it's just not ready. Lo and behold, however, I'd already organised with the guy to have it done before we left, so I actually had it. I fooled her, and then when I ended up proposing on a, where were we? A caravan park, or just by the water, this dingy caravan park, and just one night, and I surprised her. So she thought it was a joke at first, but no, it wasn't. So,
it was a very good trick. We like to joke with each other quite a lot, so it was quite quite well done. And when I got the ring, it was dark when he proposed, so I didn't know if it was real. And I'm like, did you get this out of one of those bubblegum machines? Like, is it real?
Yeah, right.
So, yeah, and then I was pretty horrified because I saw the size of the ring, and I'm not a jewellery person, and it's actually not that big. But when I saw it, I was like, oh, gee, I don't know if I could wear this, but it was lovely. It was lovely.
Well, I'm sorry, because it was too big or too small?
Too big, but it's not actually that big. Like, it's actually, I'm just not a jewellery person, so it was a bit sparkly, but I've got it now. It's fine.
So you've been working together for how many years?
Well, we'd worked together for probably about 18 months. Maybe not even 18 months. So we didn't actually stay in the prison system for too much longer. So there was a lot going on there, and we decided to, for circumstances there, decided to leave the prison system. So we went off into different jobs for a short period of time. I went off to the Independent Commission Against Corruption to do some investigations work, and Adrian went off to the New South Wales Ombudsman and did some investigations work. So we had probably about probably about 12 months working separately before we then came back and started working together in private practice after we got married.
And how has that been? Are there highs and lows to it? And how do you sort of navigate your world doing that, working together?
We work very well together.
Yeah.
I'm really happy to say.
Yeah.
Very well. We've got the same types of goals.
Yeah.
Business-wise. And she comes up with a lot of ideas. You know, she's the ideas person. You know,
He's the executioner.
Yeah, she's the ideas
Oh,
person.
okay. So you have your roles.
Yeah, very much clearly defined. And that's actually one of the things that we know about happy couples is they have really clearly defined roles in their relationship, not specifically gender roles, but just this is what I'm good at, this is what you're good at, let's work towards our strengths. And that's something that we do both personally and professionally quite a lot.
Do we do that?
Well, you are really good at taking out the rubbish.
Yeah. And barbecuing.
And I'm really good at
sweeping.
cleaning the stovetop.
Sorry, guys. What it must
That's all you need, isn't it? That's all you need to do that.
Yeah, it's little things. Sometimes I think we still get a bit stuck with thinking, is he going to do it? Is she going to do it? We probably have a bit of that. But I think we're fairly defined in our roles.
Defined.
I think fairly. Well, we have been. I think it's changed in the last couple of years, though. Since I've been so much busier, you had to sort of do more than you normally would.
We started writing a script together a couple of years ago, and that was an interesting flipping and flopping of like how do we do that? Do you guys share an office? Do you actually share a physical space, or are you in different rooms?
We're in different rooms, and I think that's one of the things people think, like, how do you work together? And we spend a lot of time together personally as well. We're like two peas in a pod. And I said, well, actually, we don't really spend a lot of time together at work. Like the role of a psychologist is actually really quite autonomous. You're in your room with your door closed with your clients for like 8 hours a day. So it's actually nice to have lunch together. I quite enjoy it. It's we don't actually spend heaps of time together. I think the biggest challenge we have had running businesses together, because we've got a couple of businesses, was very early on in our marriage we're quite perfectionistic, so we decided we were going to do everything. So book the clients in, do the accounts, do the clinical work. And at one point I'm sure our neighbours would have thought, gee, their marriage isn't going to last very long, when we were sitting downstairs trying to do the accounts, because I think we could have killed each other. And it came to a blow where Adrian just looked at me and said, Kerrie, one of two things has got to happen. You've either got to do this by yourself or I've got to do it by myself, but we can't do it together anymore. And I said, yep, you're right. You take it. And so from that point on, we divide and conquer a lot of things.
Are you able to turn off this sort of psychologist mind when you meet people or have dinner with friends, or is your mind always kind of analysing, the relationship as you're sitting there?
It's hard. It's hard to switch off.
Like, are you psychoanalyzing us right now?
No, it's off now. It's off. No, I have a very, very strict rule that, when we're driving home from the office, and we're about sort of 15 minutes away from home, so we drive home and in the car, and we're allowed to speak about anything about work in that drive home, but as soon as we pull into the to the garage, that's it. We need to stop.
I like that.
But it is sometimes hard to switch off.
And you try to keep it switched off everywhere, but I think when you've been doing the job for like 20 odd years, as is the case for anybody, it's hard to sort of separate. And I think we're so immersed in our work as well, both personally and professionally. Like it was a big step from going from being individual psychologists into being a couple that is couple therapists, you know. So that was quite a big step. And for us, I think, you know, honesty and transparency and living truth is very important. So we weren't going to go and become couples therapists if we couldn't live that out ourselves. So we live out what we teach and what we do in therapy in our life. So it does sometimes feel like the lines are a little bit hard to manage, but we do really try. We have no interest in analysing our friends and family.
What about celebrities though? Do you ever kind of read about a couple and then just look at each other and go, it's never going to make it?
Nah, we just don't. We don't, and we don't watch any reality TV. I think it's just too much.
You don't even watch maths?
Nah, no way.
I mean, surely that would be like a circus for you guys, wouldn't it? You'd be like,
it kills me. I just look at vulnerable people and what's happening to their hearts. I just can't. It kills me.
Yeah.
So I actually, I'm in the same place where you are. I look at that show and just go, oh my God, that person's really out there for looking for love, and you've got some dude who's come in from some other country and he's just ready to roll, you know, and move on, but get a little famous or something, and at the same time.
Yeah.
When you consider, you know, the pain and suffering people have gone through in their childhoods and maybe even traumas and everything like that, you sort of understand why they are the way they are, and the vulnerabilities come out, you know, in relationships, and they, you know, if you're already vulnerable inside, you can become hurt, you can get hurt, so you just try to protect yourself, and you know you can see that being played out in relationships and even on TV and reality TV and, you know, and everything like that. You can see it, and it is painful to see that, you know, and that people are suffering, but so that's why we try not to do that. You know,
and is that usually the case that people where today's problems come from? It is usually from a childhood wound.
It's really interesting. Like I think, like it's definitely the word attachment now is a fair big buzzword on social media, and it's really exciting that people are starting to learn about attachment theory. But attachment theory underpins most of what we do in psychology, and in a nutshell, it is about how, when we come into the world, do we attach to our primary caregivers, so mum and dad, and how are not only our physical needs met, but also our emotional needs for connection and understanding and support and compassion and love and safety. And so the research really tells us that what happens to us in early childhood, particularly the first 3 years of our life, which most of us don't remember, will begin to replicate itself in our adult romantic relationships. So if we have, unfortunately, an insecure attachment with our primary caregivers for one reason or another, through neglect, abuse, or various other things, then we're likely to then develop an insecure attachment style in our adult relationships and even parenting our own children. And so I think as psychologists, we just understand that the childhood stuff just underpins a hell of a lot of what we go through as adults. And in turn, in response to your question, Cam, it would definitely be affecting the way that we have relationships, marital relationships. Yeah.
What do you find in your practice is the biggest relationship, not so much red flag, but what tears couples apart the most?
If you boil it all down, it's emotional disconnection.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. If you even with, say, for example, you know, there's been distrust or breach of confidence, affairs, whatever it is, and if you track it back, most often it's about the couple is emotionally disconnected somewhere down the track. And then there's what John Gottman says. I know you guys sort of follow John Gottman. It's like it starts a cascade towards separation, breakdown, divorce, etc., etc. So in a nutshell, it's emotional disconnection, really.
Yeah. And I think it probably, sort of extending on that, it looks like something else. So it looks like we're fighting about in-laws. It looks like we're fighting about sex. It looks like we're fighting about money. But in actual fact, what we're fighting about a lot of the time is we've lost our way with each other. So we just don't know how to connect. We don't know how to have like vulnerable conversations. And I think, as you go through marriage, the challenge is how do you stay connected by continually getting to know who your partner is as they continue to grow, change and evolve. Because I think that's what we forget sometimes when we get married. We think, oh, I like this person right here, right now, and I like who they are and the way they look and the way they think, but we're forgetting that we're actually marrying a person who is in a constant state of evolution, change and growth. And so if we don't continue, as Dr. Gottman says, to date one another and get to know one another, we're actually just going to lose our way. And it's not at all uncommon when we see people coming into couples therapy that they don't know who their partner is. They talk about being like ships in the night. We don't know each other. Send them out on a date night. They look at you and like, what are we going to talk about? Because they've got nothing to talk about, So, it looks like a lot of other things, but underneath it, I'd say the primary issue, I agree with you, is emotional disconnection and distance.
Oh, it's full on, isn't it? And I mean, Ali and I have been married for 31 years now, and I feel like we've been through a lot of variations of what you're talking about. And I know that as you're talking about that, my belly just flips, because we are dynamic and we do change, and it flips because of the fear of it comes back to fear, I think.
Yeah.
Fear of, I don't know, I'm not quite sure yet, but that stays with me, and for me, and hearing things like emotional detachment or, a lot of sort of therapized labels, they throw me off, and I've used them, guilty, but I've always used them maybe to keep distance with something or try and understand something better. But actually, the hard part for me is always getting back to, what's the truth of it without putting a flashy label on it, but to get that to the real heart of the feeling. And to me, it often comes back down to fear of not being seen, or I don't know, just feeling alone.
Yeah.
Alone.
Yeah. Absolutely, Cameron. What you're talking about there is what we call attachment fears, right? Attachment fears. So I 100% agree with that.
Yeah.
It is about fear. It's about fear of not belonging. It's not the fear about not feeling approved of or accepted by one another, right? And when we don't feel that we are accepted and we fear that stuff happening, then we go into our, that sort of very primal self-protective mode that we taught ourselves when we were, as a child. We taught ourselves how to survive, right, and through the so-called traumas of childhood. And we just go back to that. And when that happens and we don't effectively work through those things, such as those attachment fears, then it can tear the relationship apart.
Yeah.
And there's a really good sort of model of therapy that I'm not sure if you guys have heard it, called EFT, or Emotionally Focused Therapy, by Sue Johnson. She's another clinical psychologist over in the States. Over in the States. Or UK, she's from the UK, I think. And basically the premise of that is helping couples or individuals to actually identify what their fears are from childhood, because that is actually what gets triggered off when we have dysfunctional conflict in our adult relationships. We all go back, we revert back to our childhood state where we felt safest and how we protected ourselves as children. And that's right. So I totally agree about that fear.
Yeah.
So how can we be better at noticing when? I mean, because like I said, it's a dynamic thing, and you've noticed we're always changing and moving. How do you get better at noticing when things are sliding? Not in a great way.
I think the thing that's most important to understand is that, and it's very hard to do in the modern day, is that relationships take time. Like, we don't actually afford enough time to just sit and get to know one another and talk to one another, whether it's as couples or even with our own children, you know. And so to give people, I suppose, something to strive for, like the Gottman Institute talks about, there's a difference between happy couples and unhappy couples of about 6 hours a week, which is less than an hour a day. And if you check your social media usage, I reckon you can find the time. But it's time that you actually have to dedicate to your relationship. So that means like chatting with each other each day about like, how's your day been going? Like, what have you been stressed about? How can I support you? How can I comfort you in the day-to-day stresses? Making sure we share like fondness and admiration and affection with one another every day. But most importantly, like, let's sit down once a week. The Gottman Institute talks about having a State of the Union conversation, which is like having a meeting about your relationship. Like, what have we done well this week? How have we managed, you know, challenging things this week? And then it also provides a really safe space for us to say, and this is what hasn't been working for me, or this is my complaint for the week, and then gives each other the opportunity to say, like, what can I do to make you feel loved and supported this week? So, like, beautiful conversations like that really prevent the slide that you were talking about, Cam, if you just are very intentional about, you know, making sure you connect regularly. That can prevent the slide, I think, from occurring.
Oh, that's great. That's
and
very helpful.
It's simple. Like that's what I love. Okay, could you just, you know, I know it's hard to sort of put it in a nutshell, but could you just explain to the listeners what the Gottman Institute is? I know both of you are trained, what would you say, Gottman Institute
We're certified
practitioners?
Gottman therapists.
There you go. So if you could explain a little bit more about what that actually means.
So the Gottman Institute has been operating for over 4 decades now. Prior to their work and the work of Dr. Sue Johnson, who we referenced before, in the study of relationships, what we found was that couples, no matter where they went to go and get help, their relationships would get worse, not better. So even if they went to a therapist or their family, their relationships wouldn't get any better. The Gottman Institute is fantastic insofar as it's the first bunch of people that have actually stopped and paused and looked at what it takes to make a relationship work. So they've been instrumental in studying couples and doing what we call longitudinal research, following them up for decades after their initial study. And they've looked at couples in their environment. So they've actually looked at what it is that they do that makes their relationship work. And this has been described in their work, The 7 Principles That Make Marriage Work. So what we do as Gottman therapists using the Gottman method is we're teaching couples or unhappy couples what happy couples naturally do. Because we know that there are couples that are unhappy. We're staring down the barrel of around about a 50% divorce rate. But of those ones that are unhappy, there's also a bunch of people, not quite another 50%, I don't think, but there's a whole bunch of people that just innately know how to make relationships work. And you would know those people when you come across them. They're just those couples that everybody actually wants to be. They still hold hands when they're like 80 and still look into each other's eyes. And so the Gottman Institute, their method of therapy is all about teaching couples what happy couples are doing day in, day out that make their relationship go the distance. Probably not the neatest nutshell, but
no, that was great. And can you, Adrian, tell us what are some of the things that a happy couple does every day?
Yeah, so this is what Gottman calls the masters of relationships versus the unfortunate name of the disasters. So it's masters versus disasters of relationships.
You fall either side of that line, right?
Yeah, that's right.
We've had both.
But so masters, first of all, they do a lot of what Gottman calls small things often. All right? So it's not good enough to go through life together not connecting on a daily basis and then having those 1 or 2 really big gestures, you know, once or twice a year, because they mean nothing if you're not connecting constantly. So what Gottman suggests is small things often, and these are very, very simple things that anyone can do, and your listeners can start doing them right away. One of them is what he calls the 6-second kiss. And so that meaning that when you are greeting each other, when you finish work or you're saying goodbye in the morning, that you actually make physical contact, you kiss for 6 seconds. And if you've ever timed out 6 seconds, that's quite a long time to kiss for. But anyway, so that's what they've sort of found. And that creates, again, an emotional connection. Kerrie mentioned the State of the Union conversation. So that's weekly, having this conversation about how our relationship is going. What are the pitfalls? What's going well, etc. What are your needs, and are they being met, and everything like that. It's also having, and I think this is probably really important for all of us, is having extremely functional conflict.
Yeah.
Because in relationships, obviously, we're not going to agree on everything. We're different people, and in couples therapy, we don't say you have to agree with each other on everything. You're still individuals. But so if conflict is inevitable, we need to be able to have conflict that is functional, right? So this is what the masters do. And just in a nutshell, how they do it, when they're having conflict, they take care of each other. It's not me against you, it's us against the issue, right? We are gentle with each other and soft with each other when we're working through the problem. I don't shut you down. I listen when you're talking. If you're in pain, one of Gottman's sayings is, when you're in pain, my whole world stops and you're the only one in it, type of thing.
Aww.
I seek to understand you. I demonstrate compassion, empathy, and validation, even if I disagree with you. These are the things that anyone can do.
Yeah.
It can be difficult. It can be difficult in the heat of the moment, but these are some of the things that the masters are doing naturally.
I remember from reading some of their work, and I've mentioned this before on the podcast, but it really hit me, is one of the things I loved them talking about is look for the signs of when someone's making a bid for connection. Yeah. And it might not look like, as you say, the big grand gestures, but it might just be, are you hungry? Do you want a cup of tea? It's those little gestures that are also saying, I love you. You mean something to me. And I loved that, because it just brings me an awareness of how many times, you're thinking of me, when you give me a call or a text, or do you know what I mean? And it's just like,
or an emoji.
I
got mad at her once because she wasn't re-emojiing me when I was overseas.
Aww.
And I'm like, I'm sending you I'm sending all these emojis of love hearts and kisses and stuff, and she's just sending me these straight words, and I'm just going, what? And finally I said, you got it. I'm reaching out by a text, and I'm pressing the emojis.
But then what happened is that I went back through all the text messages, and lo and behold, there were emojis. And I was like, mate, I'm like, well, what's this, and this, and this, and this, and this. It was like we were ships in the night on the emoji train.
What you're talking about there, Ali, is turning towards bids for connection. Yeah. So that whole turning towards that's essential. The other ways you can, and they're not preferable, of course, are the turning away or turning against. So turning away is just ignoring the bid. Turning against is actually turning against your partner, berating them or whatnot for making that bid. But we want to be turning towards, and the masters, I think the statistic is the masters turn towards each other 86% of the time. That's pretty high, pretty high. But the disasters are only turning towards each other 33% of the time. So it's a big difference. Yeah. But that's actually what shows your partner, hey, I'm aware of you in my world, and I'm constantly seeking you out, and I'm whenever you're making a bid, I'm looking to meet that emotionally. And so so the turning towards bids is extremely important.
Yeah.
It is challenging to do, though, and I think, again, that can come back to early life experiences. So what we have experienced growing up as bids for connection in our own family of origin can result in us sometimes missing completely that our partner is actually making a bid for a connection. Perfect example is somebody might have grown up in an environment where the way they connected was by being quite playful and joking all of the time. And they might not have been great at sitting down and having deep emotional conversations, but that playful, joking sort of approach was how they tried to connect with family. And so you can then miss that bid for connection and just feel irritated with your partners joking around, but not realise that they're actually attempting to connect with you. So, yeah, it's hard. And I think what you were saying, Ali, was good. You need to sort of like look out for the bids for connection and then return and respond to them, turn towards them.
So I guess that would be alleviated or brought to light through one of these State of the Union chats that you have, and you're going, you don't give me what I'm needing or whatever, and you go, but this is the way I do it.
Yeah,
so
yes,
absolutely.
All right, listeners, that's it for this episode, but there is more to come.
Yeah, we can't leave you hanging because actually there's a lot more. So we're going to take a break today and we'll reconvene this time next week
With more of Kerrie and Adrian.
on Separate Bathrooms.